Hello there, and welcome to another edition of the HuskerOnline Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, kicking things off here as we had a old-fashioned Nebraska football media day. Just overwhelmed with access. We got all four coaches, the coordinators, obviously, and 12 different players. So on top of what we've already gotten from our trip to Indianapolis last week, we got a full plate of interviews and news to break down. We're going to do that here over the course of this fall camp preview show on HuskerOnline. Before I get into the opening headlines, I do want to at least make this announcement. Tentatively, we are now going to have a live HuskerOnline show on site August 15th. And I'll get more details here in the coming days. But our friends at Zipline are going to have us out at one of their locations. I would presume possibly the new Fallbrook location for a special live show. And that's in the works. So if you like our show, you want to buy Sipple a margarita, because I do think Zipline does make a margarita, even though it's a great beer hall. They plan to have us out there on Thursday, August 15th. And we'll have more details as we get some things finalized. But I just wanted to get that at least on your schedule because we plan to do a show on location.
That should be a pretty good time.
First ever.
Well, we've done like Hawaii shows on location.
Yeah,
Carter Nelson, but not with like an audience.
No.
Carter Nelson. Don't gloss over that. That was huge.
Carter Nelson's commit, the shows in Hawaii. I mean, we've done post-game shows on the road.
Yeah.
So that new zip line, they got food there, right?
Yeah. So in Fallbrook, I think we got to figure that out, but it's either going to be at the South Lincoln Beer Hall or probably the Fallbrook restaurant. It's a full-fledged restaurant.
Okay.
So I'm excited if that's the case. I'm going to try out the place.
Yeah, 100. That'll be fun. That'll be fun.
All right. Well, let's get into it, guys. Opening headlines, and a lot to go with. But guys, it's hard for me not to start out with the news at kicker.
Oh boy.
Tristan Alvano, Matt Rule shared, is not on the 120-man fall camp roster. He suffered a growing injury, and he's going to be out for an undetermined amount of time. And we don't really know the long-term outlook of that. But now all of a sudden the kicker position, and look, it was a question in the spring. Let's not kid ourselves. I don't think Tristan Alvano had the greatest of springs, and maybe that was the reason why the injury that he went through the surgery on now, that could have been something bothering him then. But all of a sudden now there's big questions at kicker, guys.
Yeah, I don't know if he had a bad spring or not. I know he didn't have a good spring game. I don't know what kind of spring he had. Yeah, this was it's one of those things where you don't want to make too much out of it, right? Mm-hmm. But strikes me as a very Nebraska story. Like the fans are like, they're always kind of waiting for something bad. And now here's this. I don't even know if this is bad. But it's coming across
like Ed Foley said he watched him kick the other day.
Yeah, he kicked on Monday. Foley said basically the only thing he can't do right now is like full-blown kickoffs. And so he had what Matt Rule described as a quick surgery on his groin with a 2-week recovery time frame. And Ed Foley described it as something that he's dealt with in the past with other kickers. It's just kind of one of those wear and tear type injuries that kickers have on their kicking leg, and that it's part of the body. And so it's something that just, you deal with, you get through it. And neither he nor Rule seemed overly concerned about it. But again, this is a guy in Alvano that was already shaky to begin with. And now he's going to be coming off, even if it's the most minor of surgery, it's a surgery. And he's missing multiple weeks because of it. So a new storyline, add to your radar.
Yep. So now you're looking at John
Hole, or maybe Nico.
Say the last name.
I don't have it in front of me to read.
Adamanelli.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you. Say it again one more time.
Adamanelli.
Now he's
sorry.
Watching too much Olympics.
Apologies to his family. He's a freshman. John Hole, I would say would have. I don't know. I mean, sometimes I come out on here and just embarrass myself and say stuff like, "I think John Hole would get the nod here." I have no idea.
It'll be a competition to see, because what if Alvano's not ready for the opener?
Right.
And you have to have a guy ready. You would think John Hole, who kicked at Iowa Western last year, was offered a full ride to Coastal Carolina, left that to come to Nebraska. maybe they knew all this, like that this was going to have to happen, or there's the potential of this happening, because it was really curious to me when they added John Hole in the summer. It just was like, oh, what do they need a kicker for?
Well, my thought was they're adding somebody to push Alvano, because Alvano hasn't been overly reliable. He hasn't. I mean, I don't care what he does in the spring, during practice. It's not unimportant, but what I care about is when the lights are on, and he was not reliable. He was unreliable a lot of the time.
Shaky in the spring game.
So, yeah, Sean, that's what I thought. I thought, oh, they're just going to get somebody to help sharpen up Alvano. Maybe, though, they knew, because didn't rules, or it was either, I think it was Foley actually, that said they knew about this in June, early June. So I think that's what the deal was.
And guys, the reason we're talking about this is the level we are.
Yeah, because people right now are going, are you guys making a mountain out of a molehill?
Well, because, okay, Robin, what is the average point spread for a lot of Big Ten games? Take out Ohio State, Michigan, and those type of games.
Yeah, anywhere
3 to 7.
3 to 7.
And
how many games in Nebraska lose by 3 points?
Oh God!
Guess what? I mean,
they made a whole docu-series about it.
You're not going to always score touchdowns.
Yeah. Oh God, you might. Yeah, my blood pressure's going up, and with a lot of Nebraska fans right now. They're thinking about that.
Like 23-17 games. Guess what wins them?
I know.
Field goals.
No, you're not wrong. I mean,
guess what loses them?
Right.
Field goals.
Well, yeah, we've talked about it. They had an inconsistent place kicker and an inconsistent punter last year, and now you're hoping that part of the game settles out. And here we have this. Rules really got to be smart about it in terms of thinking about his entire team and not letting this affect confidence. It's a confident team. As the leader, you can't let Sean and Robin and Sip and the other media kind of be hysterical about this and affect their confidence, because there's going to be some hysterical conversations.
All right, I want to shift gears here in opening headlines.
Yeah, we better.
Because we've given kicker a lot of time, probably the record amount of time in the history of the show, 502 episodes. But I want to talk about the coaching staff and the new coaching assignments. And I think we were really interested and curious. But Matt Rule did a pretty good job of breaking down the major ones. And Robin shared this on the site. Ron Brown is back on the field coaching. I mean, and look, I think he had a role. But he's now going to be the fullbacks and the returners coach. Aaron Colling takes over the assistant offensive line coach, which he kind of already was. But this has the official title. Adam DeMichael is now assistant secondary and safeties coach. Josh Martin, who coached tight ends last year as a full-time coach, is assistant special teams coach. Kevin McGarry, senior defensive analyst. Rashawn Melvin, that's a new hire they just brought in that played over 10 years in the National Football League. Assistant secondary and cornerbacks coach. Jamar Mosney is going to work with receivers, but they list him as a senior football assistant. Jack Potenza is a Jack linebackers coach. Keith Williams, former offensive lineman at Nebraska, that's in recruiting and personnel, is also going to work with tight ends. I would assume this opens the road up for Keith to go out and recruit now on the road, particularly in St. Louis. Corey Campbell, Dr. Let's see. And that's really it. So look, I would say the biggest moves were the addition of Jamar Mosey and Rashawn Melvin.
And Ron Brown.
Ron Brown,
it's not really an addition.
He's been on, he's been on the field as much as he legally could. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Now he can legally be on the field.
Yeah, that's what we've been waiting for. That's significant. We don't know the pay for these people. That'll be interesting.
No, the official university budget hasn't been posted yet. And, they set that budget in July. And so it should be posted soon. And generally anybody that would get a pay bump is going to get put on there. But yeah, I think Mosey and Melvin would be the ones you're most interested on and what they do with some of this pay on these coaches. Yeah,
I guess I get interested in Ron Brown because he's in his upper 60s. It's amazing what I don't know exactly
Looks
how
like
old
he's 40.
Yeah, he does. Now I don't know about 40, but you could sell me 50.
He's better shape than I am.
Yeah, me too. God dang it. Hey, I mean, he's knocking on 70. Crazy. I don't know exactly his age because it's hard to find, and it might be by design, but he's knocking on 70. How about that?
Incredible.
Yeah, and he'll be a great. And I would hope I mean, maybe he can help with the running backs too. I don't want to get out over my skis here, but I mean, he did a pretty good job coaching running backs here.
Yeah. So with Mosey, I mean, obviously there's the recruiting dynamic there, but do we know what his on-field role is going to be, given that right now he's just currently listed as a senior football assistant?
Rule addressed it at media days,
Okay.
and he said receivers.
Okay. So
Assistant receivers.
I would think he'll work with the receivers.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Which, okay, look at those duties and assignments. There's nobody tagged to receivers, and guess what position is going to have probably 3 or 4 on the field at all times.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, he has the ability to work with a lot of positions, but receivers and then obviously his recruiting prowess too.
And then Melvin's interesting too. He played for Rule with the Panthers going back in the day. So, I mean, he's an NFL experienced defensive back that just gives another wealth of information and knowledge there.
Yeah, he was I'm going to say he played in the league for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now don't quote me on that, but he played for several teams and I think he might have ended his career in Carolina.
Yeah, 22.
Yeah. So yeah, he'll know a lot.
All right, when we come back, we're going to shift the discussion to offensive things heading into fall camp. We'll break down the offensive storylines next. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett as we preview fall camp. We had a full-fledged media day with over 16 different players and coaches available, so lots to get through. But before we get into the offensive discussion, gentlemen, this segment of the show brought to you by Omaha Steaks. They've got the hotter than fire sale going on right now at omahasteaks.com. They've got several great specials that start at just $99. Those are already discounted down. And then we're going to give you another $10 off that. You got to use the promo code HuskerOnline. That's promo code HuskerOnline at omahasteaks.com. That's Huskers with an S online at omahasteaks.com. They got steaks, they got hot dogs, they got burgers, they have sides, chicken, desserts, you name it. Omaha Steaks is going to get you covered, and they've already got these great hotter than fire sale specials going on. We're going to take $10 more off that with the promo code HuskersOnline. Thanks again to Omaha Steaks for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online Show. Okay, let's get into the discussion on the offense, because obviously Dylan Raiola being the starting quarterback at Nebraska might be the worst kept secret in America right now at this point. I think everybody, I mean, let's put it this way. He's taken the entire offensive line out to Isles Pizza multiple times, where every lineman orders their own large pizza and their own personal order of wings.
He pays for it.
And he pays for the whole bill.
Okay. Rob and Sean, how I like to push back on what Sean says. I can't even do it on this.
I stopped pretending.
I mean, the only thing you're mad about is you want to go to Isles Pizza right now.
It'd be fine.
Oh gosh, it's great.
Yeah, you're right. And then what did Rule say today about Dylan? He's obsessed.
Yeah.
Or was that Satterfield that said that?
Yeah, Satterfield said that.
Marcus Satterfield said something that's incredibly important.
My question to him, I think, when I asked about what have you seen from him as far as where he's at compared to other freshmen that you've worked with?
Yes, and Satterfield, paraphrasing, go ahead or just say it.
Obsessed to be really, really good.
Okay. All right. Why is that important? Because first of all, not every great player that comes down the pike is obsessed with being good. Dylan has, you would agree, a lot of talent. I mean, a lot of arm talent, a lot of just physical talent. I always, the way I describe the physical part is, I'm pretty sure he could be a Major League Baseball catcher. I mean, he was a really good catcher, and just went away from that sport to football. But I've heard Dominic talk. What kind of catcher do you think that was? I mean, what do you think about his arm?
Mm-hmm.
So he's incredibly talented with a strong will to win and a strong will to be the best. He loves football, and he loves the idea of playing in the NFL. It's a great picture. That's all it is. It's a great picture.
Yeah, and I thought it was notable too that he's got the drive, the work ethic.
Yeah.
He's got the physical components.
Yeah.
And what did Marcus Satterfield say today? He said right now, with the way that quarterbacks are being developed mentally at such a early age with the high level training camps and quarterback coaches and all that sort of thing, that it's so sped up now that that's really not the issue as far as the transition from high school to college. It's the physical component, as he put it. And Paul, what did you just talk about? He's built like a major league catcher.
Yeah,
like
he is.
I mean, so
look at him.
Every
Look at
box,
photos.
every box you talk about is this true freshman going to be ready? He checks it,
except one that you don't know.
Yeah,
and that is we don't know how he'll respond under intense pressure.
He hasn't been hit yet.
Mm-hmm.
That, and he hasn't been down 17-0 at home to say Colorado. And like Sean points out, those moments where you can hear the plane buzzing over the stadium because it's so quiet.
The murmur.
Yeah. And then you hear the murmur of
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's 100% Sean. That's amazing. That's only a Nebraskan could identify that. But yeah, we don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
How's he going to be if it or you can switch it up too. What if it's 17-17 against Ohio State and they have the ball with 2 minutes to go? How's he going to be? I mean, I don't know that.
Well,
how's he going to be under that kind of pressure?
This is I want to say a bad example, but Tanner Lee was great not getting hit, like threw the ball perfect all the time. He ended up being a draft pick as a quarterback, but when the pressures broke down and he didn't have the receivers that the offense had the year before, he got exposed pretty badly for Mike Riley as a draft pick.
Right.
So, you're right. I mean, it's throwing on air, throwing without getting tackled.
Right. It's different.
Is different than obviously the game.
Saturdays mean everything.
Mm-hmm.
You can almost, I always say on Saturday, you can gauge a program pretty well if you watch closely enough on Saturday. You watch warm-ups, you watch the sideline, you watch the game. You can tell a lot. So that's what it comes down to.
All right, running back discussion, guys. We heard from Ramir Johnson as well as Emmett Johnson, both at the preseason press conference. I think Robin wrote, Emmett Johnson's kind of put himself in that spot to be the guy, at least going into training camp. With Ramir Johnson now back in the fold, you've got Gabe Urban Jr. in that discussion, Dante Dowdell, all those guys kind of battling right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's still plenty of competition left to play out. But if you ask Emmett Johnson who he thinks should get the first reps in practice, it's him.
Mm-hmm.
And he feels like he earned that right, which it's hard to argue. He was the guy that started 6 of the final 7 games. He had played more snaps than any running back on the roster.
Yeah.
And so he's the one guy that went out there and did it.
Yeah.
And so I agree. I think at this point, he is the guy. And then the other guys are, it's going to be an open competition. But if you're going to try to say who is your number one back going into the start of fall camp, I find it hard pressed to say somebody other than Emmett Johnson.
He ended the season as that guy. So I agree with you. And I think he's really intent on, well, I know he is. You were standing there listening to him with me and some other guys. I'd be really surprised if he's not markedly better, just based on what he's saying. He's 10 pounds heavier. Feels like he's more elusive.
Mm-hmm.
Robin,
you see in the field better is one thing too.
Yeah. And you were standing there. He's really confident.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Sean, I like when you talk to these guys and they project confidence. And Emmett Johnson's really confident.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's a confident kid. He wants to be that guy.
I tell that story in Ireland where he wasn't dressed out for that game because it was a travel roster rule, but he got to go.
Okay.
And you could just sense that he was disappointed, that he kind of thought he'd come in as a freshman and play.
Yep. Well, he went out. His freshman year, he ended up number 1. Injuries. I mean, that's why. But
redshirt freshman year.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Sean. Yeah, you're right. Redshirt freshman year. Injuries put him in that position, and I'd say he did a pretty good job. I mean, he didn't have a great year, but it was good, and it was good enough that you wonder, can he do it? Can he start the season number 1?
Well, especially with the questions with Ramir and Gabe and their injuries.
Yeah, you wonder. I don't know if Dowdell's ready for number 1.
I think it's more is Irvin durable. Is he durable enough right now? I mean, the style he runs, it's kind of a car crash style of running.
Sure.
Can he get back to that?
I don't know. Is it just me or do we ever? It just seems like Ramir do we write him off a little bit just because we look at him as a specialty back, like
durability?
And he can't stay healthy.
He's had shoulder issues.
He can't stay healthy.
He's had different issues of injuries over his career all the way back to when he got here.
when healthy, he's proven to be pretty darn effective in a lot of ways, but just hasn't happened.
All right, quickly, guys, I want to hit on Micah Mazuka too in the offensive headlines because
good job, Sean.
of all the newcomers they brought in, the transfers, there were a lot of good ones, but Micah Mazuka was kind of they thought he was going to come here 2 years ago, and he ended up picking Florida, leaves Florida, comes here. I mean, whatever they got him for in terms of NIL and whatnot, it appears to be well worth it. This guy's going to really help this offensive line potentially.
I think so. I mean, Jamari Butler was asked who's the toughest guy he faces in practice, and Robin was standing there, as was I, and he right away he said Micah Mazuka, and just said he's just tougher than hell, dog. He used the DAWG. So that could be your left guard. It could be your left guard. I don't know that I would just hand him that spot right now, but man, if you listen,
sure looks like the front runner at this point, especially when you pair it with the way they were talking about it at Big Ten Media Days out in Indianapolis, where Ty Robinson, who's notable not only because he goes up against him in practice, they have a locker right next to each other. And so Ty has been there every day with Micah as he kind of went through that shaky start to his career where Matt Rule said he had to adjust to the standard here at Nebraska and what it kind of entails on a day-to-day basis. Well, that evolution is really coming to shape. And Ty talked about that a little bit to where he's acclimated now. He understands what's expected of him, and he's done a great job of being himself while also trying to find his way into their tight-knit group. So it seems like that part of it was kind of the only question about can he do the things necessary to keep himself in that conversation on and off the field. And by all accounts, listen, to everybody that's talked about him, he's doing exactly what they want.
All right, when we come back, we're going to shift the discussion to the defensive headlines out of fall camp. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, as we talk some defensive storylines. Before we get to that, this segment of the show, guys, is about brought to you by Nebraska Synthetic Greens. They are the leading premium artificial grass, golf greens, playground, sport field installer in Nebraska. So if you've got a playground or play set in your backyard, they can come in and put perfect turf down. If you have, if you like golf and you're like, you know what, I don't have time to go to the course. I want to have time to go in my backyard and chip and putt and practice. They can come to your backyard and install a custom golf green. And that would really help my golf game. That's part of the problem is I can't leave my computer in my house. But if I had this guy's in my backyard, I would get pretty good.
Would you now?
I'd get at least respectable.
Okay. Your short game needs work is what you're telling
me.
me.
But yeah, if you've got space in your yard, they can put a tennis court in, as you can see, playgrounds, golf greens. It's a great, great deal at Nebraska Synthetic Greens. And we've got a special for you. If you call them and you mention you heard about them on Husker Online, they're going to give you, after your initial consultation, they're going to give you your first annual maintenance service for free after a 1 year of installation. So that's $1,000 value, up to about $1,000. They're going to give you that maintenance for free. Call Nebraska Synthetic Green SIP. Give them the number. Give them the info.
Give them a call. They'll put a green in for you. The number, and I'm going to say this slowly, 402-238-9960. Nebraska Synthetic Greens, 402-238-9960. Great idea.
And that's at nebraskasyntheticgreens.com. Thank you for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online Show. Okay, guys, defensive discussion here from the press conference. And look, I don't know if we learned a whole lot of new things. I mean, Javin Wright, talked more about his journey back. And, when you hear everything that kid went through, I thought that was pretty eye-opening to hear the
blood clots,
multiple
labrum tears, ankle, knee. Yeah, he was through a lot. We don't talk about Javin Wright enough. Forget all that.
As a person.
Well, yeah. I mean, his personal story is amazing, but we just don't talk about him enough as a player. It seems like he gets lost in the conversation. He had 51 tackles last year.
A couple picks.
Yeah, tied for, I believe he tied for second on the team in tackles. He had the same amount of tackles as Bullock. And it doesn't seem like okay, now this is the old man talking. It seems like we make a big deal of Bullock and never mention Javin Wright. Javin Wright is ridiculously talented. He could be when you're talking about that whole turnover discussion, if there's one guy on the team I would point to that says, okay, he could affect the turnover margin, maybe Jamari Butler and Javin Wright would be the two guys I'd pick. Because he can
do so many things.
Yeah, he can pick balls out of the air. You saw that. He's, what is he, 6'5"?
Yeah.
What do you think his reach is? It's incredible.
It's long.
Yeah, and he'll hit you at that inside linebacker position. So, yeah, he's big, and I'm glad. You know what? I'm glad he's on the screen there, and I'm glad we're talking about him because we don't talk about him enough.
Yeah, when you have that frame and athleticism paired with cover skills, you can do a lot of different things. And what does Tony White like to do? Use guys in a lot of different ways. So Wright is kind of the picture of kind of what they want.
Yeah.
Those defensive positions, especially kind of that hybrid safety linebacker spot.
100.
I mean, he's a guy that can play in a lot of different ways and make an impact in a lot of different ways, which you saw last year. And I think you see the natural progression as, for one, he's been able to stay healthy, and two, he's kind of getting his footing and his confidence back under him. That picture is really coming into focus here. That is looking pretty good for Nebraska.
It's simple. Jamari Butler, and you've kind of led the charge on this after what Terrence Knighton told you back in our satellite camp coverage in Belton, just the leader he's become on this football team.
Oh God. Yeah. He broke it down pretty well. I mean, he didn't because we were asking him about it. Remember the Michigan game and how that went, and then the practice that ensued. Apparently Rule just showed him one play from the Michigan game and then said, okay, we're going to go out and practice. I don't know what that play was, but I'd like to know. And then Jamari said he saw, as they were going out to practice, they knew this was Sunday. They don't do that. They don't practice on Sunday. And he said he saw fear in guys' eyes. Like, what is this? What are we doing? And he stopped them and said, if you're scared, don't go out there. And that got a lot of people's attention. And he said everybody went out there, but he said he saw fear in guys' eyes after that. And he and Thomas Fedoni, were the guys that really stepped up as leaders in the wake of that Michigan game. And Javin Wright said, Jamari is a great leader, and Terrence Knighton said that too, but Javin Wright said he doesn't say a lot, but when he talks, people listen. And that's a great leader. And he said he's very stern. He's an interesting guy because he's stern, but you say he's also he's got a good sense of humor. So he's an interesting guy.
And you got a guy like that also backs it up with his play. I mean, you just look at him. Just
well,
he has
he had the most sacks on the team last year.
So, I mean, he's got the production, and then you just see the physical makeup that he has at that position. I mean, he looks like a totally different player from just a couple of years ago.
Remember, guys, when we were doing those interviews in the summer a couple of years ago, I remember vividly talking to him, and he doesn't look like the same guy. He was a good basketball player in high school. And he looked like a basketball player when he got here. He looks like a football player.
Now he's a defensive end.
Yeah. A Big Ten defensive end.
No doubt.
Guys, the other thing I wanted to hit on the defense was that other corner position and just kind of how that's going to shake it. And John Butler. I mean, because we talked to a lot of the players, and it sounds, I mean, I asked Tommy Hill, and immediately I think John Butler's credentials and background got his attention, and he told Tommy Hill right off the cusp, he goes, "You're a lot bigger than I realized." Tommy Hill is 205 pounds.
Interesting.
And he came in here at 175 when he first got to Nebraska.
Is that right? See, Javin Wright, I asked Javin Wright, who are the guys, because Javin Wright's very athletically gifted. I said, who are the guys you think of on the team when you think of the most athletically gifted guys? The first guy he said was Tommy Hill. So that gives you an idea. So Tommy's huge.
Again,
what about that other corner spot, though?
I mean, Travis Fisher's comments on Tommy Hill are still hard to forget about. When he said that Tommy Hill is enough talent that he's good enough that his name could be on that stadium someday.
I know. Then that was before
the trouble.
We were in Rutgers and we looked down and he was practicing at receiver, and we thought, okay, that's the end of Tommy Hill. He's out there with the receivers. We'll never hear from him again.
I mean, they sent him out to pasture. It felt like at that point, like that his career was done here.
Pig farmed him. That's what it felt like, right? That's to steal a Bill Moose term.
People are pig farming basically means somebody that was once in a significant role, you give them kind of a bad duty.
Yeah.
Put them pig farmed.
Sean just smoothed it out. Thank you, Sean. So, but you mentioned that other corner. Who is it? Who's the corner opposite Tommy Hill?
Is it Buford?
To be determined. I asked Buford today if he's playing corner, and he said, I'll do whatever they want me to do. Like
Marquise
he would not.
Buford.
Yes, Marquise Buford. He would not give a clear answer as to whether or not he's been working at corner or plans to work at corner, but he did not close the door on the idea of him doing that. He said, wherever they want me to play, I'll play. So kind of a company line answer there, but I'd keep an eye on that one for a little bit, just because it seems like it's still very unsettled. You know, the Bly Hills, they're still waiting on him to come back. Some talk about Sierra Wright a little bit, the USC transfer. You know, Tony White today called him extremely talented, and it was obvious why he had the recruiting profile that he did, but he's new here. And now it's time for him to adjust, just like all the Mazzuccas and all the guys that first get here. There's a transition of playing at another program and then playing for Matt Rule. And so I think that's kind of what he's going through right now, and how quickly he's able to catch up in that regard is probably going to go a long ways to how he factors into that competition.
All right, when we come back, we are going to shift over to the mailbag. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. We're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, Abby Barmore will join us next week, as she has been on vacation here this week. So I am going to wear the mailbag hat again, gentlemen. But before we get to the mailbag, Stephen M. Sipple is brought to you by who?
Guys, every week, it's Larson Motors. Very reliable. If you're looking for a new vehicle, how about going for a new experience at Larson Motors in Nebraska City? Get to Nebraska City. Larson Motors is one of the Midwest's only dealerships with all the major brands in one location. Finding your new Chevrolet, GMC, Hummer, Ford, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram never has been easier. Start your new experience today at LarsonMotorGroup.com. That's LarsonMotorGroup.com, or at Larson Motors in Nebraska City. Larson Motors, real people,
real deals.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, let's get
through for me.
Let's get into the mailbag. I'm going to start first. One of our favorite listeners. We have many favorite listeners, but Paul Jacobson, loyal listener to the Husker Online Show, wants to know if any players are attached to their jersey number. An example, Jamal Banks with 80, or Dylan Raiola maybe number 15. And if they're voted to be awarded the single digit, will they decline, or can they decline? That's a great question. I have a hard time thinking that if you're not a lineman, you're going to decline that. I mean, Nash Hutmacher is a great example of that. He's in zero.
Yeah. Would you decline? Is Dylan married to 15?
Be a bad look if you're a true freshman that comes in there and says, no, I'm not going to turn down this prestigious honor that's been bestowed upon me. I'm going to wear my number.
I can't push back. I wish I could, but I agree with you. I wish I could.
And it's probably a reason why there's two number 15s on offense right now, still with Malachi Coleman. And one of them's changing.
Yeah. I wonder about that, Sean. I don't know how to answer that. I've never asked a kid that.
Well, the numbers that are open right now, 1, 3, 4, and 7. There's only 4 available. 1, 3, 4, and 7. And
that's assuming all of the returning single-digit guys from last year retain their single digit.
No, you keep
it?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought they opened it up.
No, you've earned that. And you keep it.
Okay.
Noted.
So there's only 4 to give. Jamal Banks seems like a guy that's going to get one.
Great candidate.
What about Fedoni?
God, Fedoni seems like almost a no-doubter to me.
And maybe as a freshman, Raiola won't get one. Maybe they'll just want to, because that would be a lot on a young man's shoulders to have to wear that every year. Earn that.
Yeah. God, Sean, you identified Fedoni. I just wouldn't understand if he doesn't get one.
So the returning single-digit numbers are Nash Hutmacher, Isaac Gifford, John Bullock, Deshaun Singleton, Ty Robinson. Those are the 3.
What about Butler, Jamari Butler?
Jamari Butler's 10.
No, I'm saying could he be
great candidate? Why do we say that? Because Terrence Knighton identified him as the leader of the defensive line room. That's Ty
Which
Robinson.
Includes 2 single-digit seniors.
Right. Butler and Fedoni, we just talked about earlier in the show after the Michigan debacle, and I call it a debacle. You guys got on me pretty hard for that, but I call it a debacle. They're the ones who stepped up and said this is not going to work, and they led that team to Illinois. Jamari Butler said it was like they had 3 games in a week because they played Michigan. Then they had a practice of 96 live plays. 96 live plays. And then they went to Illinois on a Thursday, right? Or is that a Friday? Friday. Yeah, it's like they had 3 games in 1 week, he said. He said it was incredible.
Tommy Hill, another candidate.
Tommy Hill is a great candidate.
I mean, you have Tommy Hill, Jamal Banks.
I think Marquise Buford's got to be a candidate.
It's going to be hard. There's only 4.
Oh, that's going to be
last year. I mean, they were giving out 10.
Yeah, you're right.
So it'll be interesting,
Sean. That will be interesting
how they decide to do that. Okay, Jim in Minnesota, another great Husker fan on social media on our website, wants to know about Keith Williams, and this is the new coaching staff assignments. Has Keith Williams become Nebraska's top recruiter? Every recruit talks about him. Look, I think Keith is going to be one of those guys that's really going to benefit off this new rule, where you can have additional on-field coaches, but now he can go on the road and recruit. And particularly in St. Louis, finally, it appears Nebraska has somebody that can go down to St. Louis, and some of his former teammates, Mike McNeil, Chris Brooks, they both actually help coach and work with kids in St. Louis. So he's got contacts. He even mentioned who was that receiver at Missouri a couple years ago? I'm now blanked on his name. I was going to say Damian Nash, but that was another St. Louis player. Jeremy Macklin.
Oh, Jeremy Macklin. You're going back a few years.
He's connected to Jeremy Macklin, so he's got the connections to go down to St. Louis and help Nebraska.
I remember Macklin caught that ball early in the game here in Lincoln, and went about 80 yards or something like that. Pliny, and it was a problem. But anyway, yeah, St. Louis and Kansas City haven't been great spots for Nebraska, and they should be. They should be better. So yeah, that could help.
Yep. And I agree. A guy like those connections, to be able to just not have the on-field, but the recruiting part of it too. You can do a lot of different things with who you send on the road and who you stay on campus to work with guys.
God, Rule identified 3 things that he turns his attention to now. He gets away from that big picture talk about the roster size and transfer portal and NIL, and he focuses on 3 things he said. And number 1 was recruiting. Number one was recruiting.
Yep.
And then football players' lives, and then I think this 2 was football players' lives, and then on-field improvement. Go back and look at it, but number 1 was recruiting.
All right, Spencer Klein was curious about the open practice, maybe how many tickets have been sold. And look, they have not shared an official number, but I'm confident to say it's well under 5,000 right now. And I think it's going to lead into some discussion, because I think people just assume there'd be 20,000 people, but the price point of $25 for a practice, it's going to be hot out. It's a Saturday night in August. It's a tough sell.
Here's the good news: there's tickets available.
So
just a few.
I personally
shut out.
And look, Sip and I unfortunately can't even go Saturday because I have a wedding and you have an event.
Speaking engaged
in Fort Calhoun.
Yeah.
I'll be there. I'll hold down the fort.
I know, Rob. Rob will be there, and I assume
Abby, Joseph, our new intern, Carter.
Yeah, I hate calling those guys interns because Joseph outrights me right now. But so that will be what well represented. I wish I could be there.
Yeah, and Rule made it clear that this is not just you're buying a ticket, it's a fundraiser.
That's a good point.
There's a direct use for that money that will be put to good use by Nebraska.
Rule said his wife Julie is going and paying $25.
$25. All the parents of players that are participating, all that, they're all paying. They're all trying to raise money,
paying millions of dollars to the players. And look, they're just asking let's kind of have a grassroots fundraising effort for it.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe if it goes well and people talk about it, they're going to do it again. And so maybe the next one will have a little more traction.
Yeah.
I don't know, if it was $15, would it really make a difference? I don't know. I don't know.
25 is not prohibitive unless you, taking 5 kids and you start.
Right.
It adds
for
up.
one ticket, it's not bad.
It's a fundraiser, though.
Right.
And I'd imagine your access to the players is going to be great afterwards.
Yeah. Rule, Matt Rule well enough by now. He'll make sure it's a show.
Yeah. They got to do some fan experience type things where you're just not sitting there watching them go through half pad drills or something like that.
All right. Final question. The Nebraska ball team moved in the dorms on Tuesday. You guys have any great dorm fraternity house move-in memory stories? I say, did you live in the fraternity your freshman year, Sip?
No, I lived in Able 6. So 6th floor of Able.
They didn't even let you live in the DU house of the pledge.
No,
they didn't want you in there.
I don't remember how that went. I don't remember how it went, Sean. It was so long ago. I only lived there for a semester. I don't have any wild stories. I think my brother though, Marty, they had a contest to name the eating area, like the late night area, not real late, but you could go to an area and get snacks and stuff. And they asked for a name. They asked the people to name it, and you could submit it. And Marty's idea was Able Stable, and I think it's stuck. Yeah, the Able Stable.
There you go.
The great Marty Sipple.
Yeah, and he was there. I was there with my brother for a year, I think.
I just remember moving in the SAE house my freshman year, and just realizing like you're on your own. Like just being down here from Omaha, living on your own.
Yeah, I called my mom and dad, said I want to come home. That's what I remember about Able. I called my dad, I called my mom and said, "Hey, I'm coming home." And she goes, and then she said, "I'll put your dad on the line." And I said, "Dad, I'm coming home." He goes, "Okay, that's fine. Where are you going to stay?" And I said, "Well, I thought I'd stay with you guys." And he said, "Well, no, you're not. You're not going to stay here. So you have to figure something out."
I spent a lot of time though in Sella Call because the computer lab was there next to my fraternity. And do you remember Carl Myerscough?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the big thrower.
The big Brit
thrower.
6'10".
He
lived in Selleck.
Yeah.
And my God, it was like the real life version of the mountain on Game of
He's the biggest man I've ever seen in my life.
Is
Like it was the mountain.
Is Markov
I mean, he was like 6'10", 300 something.
big man?
Huge.
Like he makes Teddy Prohaska look small.
Good God.
He was a beast.
Are you sure? Really?
Yes.
He was a beast.
He makes Prohaska.
I covered track for the Daily Nebraska when he was like,
Now hold
in
on.
his
Sean
heyday.
just said something incredible to me. He makes Teddy Prohaska look
His
small.
shoulders were a lot wider.
he had this neck that was like this.
Oh my God.
So I was in Shram 2. So that was my dorm. And the first year, so the first semester I had a roommate who ended up,
If you went to Lincoln High, they stuck you in shrimp.
yeah, that was the degenerate dorm.
Great view, level 2.
So my roommate like dropped out at semester, so they didn't replace him. So I had the room to myself, which was basically like a condo at that point.
Awesome.
And as things went along, we got pretty confident in the stunts we tried to pull off in our dorm, including the highlight was when we snuck in a full-size keg. We got like a trash can, like
That's
one of the
getting good.
Nebraska plastic, big old trash cans, and put a keg in there. Went and distracted the people that were running the door, like where you show your end card, like get in, whatever, and like came in through the side door and lugged a full keg up to Shram 2 on the stairs and ended up having a full-blown keg party in one of the rooms.
And didn't get caught by
Didn't
like
get
the.
caught. It was incredible.
Didn't they have like floor?
RAs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, we
Resident assistants.
fooled that guy.
They didn't get you.
He did not get us. I think he found out about it after the fact and was not happy. But you know what? So what?
Yeah, those
That's
are the
a good
days.
one.
Moving in the dorms. I mean, just the freedom that you get. I mean, these guys, unfortunately, they're not getting any freedom. I mean, the
No, they're
Nebraska
not.
players are under a strict 6:30 in the morning to pretty much 9:30 at night
They
schedule.
can't even bring the college football video game in with them.
Are we saying 10 days? I think rule said about 10 to
10-ish,
12.
yeah.
10
It's
to
not a
12
full
days.
2 weeks.
And the assistant coaches are in the rules in there.
So it's Tuesday.
Not easy. Not
it's
easy.
this week and then next week is my guess.
Not easy.
All right. When we come back, we're going to introduce a new fall camp segment here throughout training camp. We're going to call it our fall camp stock report. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. Final segment here of the Husker Online Show as we do our stock report segment here for fall camp. Before we get to that, make sure you try us out at Husker Online. There is no better time than right now to try us out. And we're going to give you, Steve Sipple, how many months for $1?
Looks like 2 to me.
2 months for $1. Use the promo code NU1. That's going to essentially get you all the way now, really into October practically. If you take advantage of this great deal, 2 months for $1. Use the promo code NU1 at Husker Online. That's for new users. Okay, I wanted to come up with something that we could do in a final discussion point. And I thought for fall camp, a stock report segment was appropriate. And so what we're going to do is we're each going to give our stock ups right now. And then we're going to close with, we're not going to say stock down, but we're to say waiting to buy. So starting out first, my stock up as we kind of head into fall camp is definitely Micah Mazuka. And I say that, guys, because during spring ball, you just didn't know. It didn't seem like he was in a really good place, that he wasn't a good fit.
Well, it's because Rule said that.
I mean, yeah, the head coach said that. And, now as we sit here with training camp starting,
there's the big man.
He definitely looks like he's been a very valuable addition and could end up being one of their better linemen. And he's definitely as experienced as any lineman on this team right now.
Yeah. And you just wonder sometimes with these veteran players, if they get into spring ball and they're like, okay, we got to do this spring ball thing again. You saw Rule's approach with some of the veterans on this team that were already on the team. They didn't have to do all that much.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it was, with Mazuka, it could have been some of that. Like, what am I doing? And then when it starts getting real, he turns it on. I think that's maybe what you're looking at here. The reason we can do this, some people, guys, will, just a quick interlude, will look at us and go, why are you doing stock up and holding off or whatever we're calling it right now? Camp hasn't even started. Well, we can do it because college football now, they have OTAs and they've ramped. I mean, my impression is they've ramped it up. I mean, it's like not year round, but summer's pretty important. Go ahead, Rob.
All right, Robin, who do you have? What's your stock up?
I'm going to go a little bit further down the offensive line to the other potential guard spot. I'm going to say Justin Evans. Now, he's in a tight competition with Henry Lutovsky and Mazuka, for that matter, to claim one of those starting guard
Turner
spots.
Corcoran even.
Corcoran, yes, that's certainly a potential as well. But just based off what players have said about Justin Evans over the last couple of weeks, has caught my attention. It started with Ty Robinson talking about him at Big Ten Media Days, where he just talked about, he was just asking kind of a general question: who's someone on the offensive line that has jumped out to you in workouts? Like who's tough to go against? He said Evans, unprompted, and just talked about how physical, strong he is. And when he gets a hold of you, you're not getting away. And then today, or I guess this week, Nash Hutmacher said the same thing. So you're talking about two of Nebraska's most veteran interior defensive linemen, or just defensive linemen, that have mentioned him by name when asked that general question of who has impressed you on the offensive line. That, to me, is extremely notable. And I think that's a separator at this point in camp.
New Jersey street fighter. I mean, the Raiolas love him. Dominic loves him. I mean, Donovan. I mean, this is a Donovan guy because he's a street fighter.
Mm-hmm.
You guys watch football. I'm amazed. It just looks like every play is a street fight in the interior.
Mm-hmm.
And he can do it.
All right, Sip, who do you got?
Oh, this will surprise you. I got a surprising name for you. Someone we don't talk about.
I mean, who could that be?
Yeah, we just don't talk about him very much. Have you ever heard of Carter Nelson?
Oh my gosh. I don't think anybody right now is listening. I mean,
stock is soaring. It's incredible. Well, we're talking about it because Matt Rule in Indianapolis said his stock is soaring, basically.
And Marcus Satterfield today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, said that you well, in Satterfield, you know what, on our trip to Texas, made it pretty clear that they're going to do whatever they can to get him on the field. That's when I started getting excited. Actually, that was early June. And then Rule's comments come in late July. And now a little more talk about Carter today. So they're playing him at this position called F. F is in Frank. It's the F position. So it's a slot split out tight end. Fedoni will play F sometimes too. But they're working him in. He's gonna play for Nebraska this year. It's clear. They're getting him ready to play, which is smart because he's 6'4", 230, 235.
He runs a 4.5 40.
And he's lifting weights for the first time. And as we saw in Hawaii, he has some serious dog in him.
Okay, next part of the segment, waiting to buy. These are things that we aren't really ready to buy in on. And I'm going to take the easy, low-hanging fruit of the week, kicker. I mean, I think the kicker position for Nebraska, just not knowing Alvano's durability and just how much we've kind of been plagued at the kicker position at Nebraska, really since Pat Smith.
Yeah, and like you guys have mentioned, what's that series they have on Twitter?
Chasing Three.
Chasing Three. And why is it Chasing Three? Because
they lost how many games by 3 points?
Several.
3 or 4.
Right. So, I don't want this Alvano story to define the first few weeks of camp, but it almost feels like today we're heading down that road. right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a dangerous.
Well, it was already a question, and now it's an even bigger question right now because he's not playing. He's not practicing. So, yes, to be determined on that one in a major way. For me, I'm going to go at running back, Gabe Ervin Jr. And I think just because he's a guy that I think when healthy has probably the total package of everything that you want in a running back as anybody in that room. Problem is, you just can't stay healthy. And so just the availability aspect with him and how he's coming back off a season-ending injury, you just don't know. And so while the potential is there for him to take that starting running back job and run with it all year long, I need to see it before I can believe it, just because he just hasn't shown the durability to get to that point where he is your every down workhorse.
And the third one, where we're in kind of a holding pattern, is the starting corner spot opposite Tommy Hill. We just don't know how that's going to shake out right now. Sierra Wright is someone you'd look at.
Marquise Buford, Jeremiah Charles. I mean, I still have a hard time just saying Jeremiah Charles.
Why is that, Sean?
Because he hasn't played a lot of football.
Redshirt freshman.
And he only played 1 year of high school football.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, I got you.
Freak of an athlete, though. Unbelievable athlete.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I would never. I'm not in the business of writing anybody off. So maybe if you watch practice, you'd have a different thought on it. But I totally agree with you. It seems kind of scary to do it. We also didn't mention Malcolm Hartzog, who they have thrust into that conversation. They, the coaches, those are your principals. Dwight Boodle, I think you'd put in there too. But Dwight Boodle would be on the periphery probably compared to the other guys.
How many guys will they play early, though? Because I think early in the season, especially UTEP and Northern Iowa, there could be some opportunities to play more players.
There could. Also, you got to keep in mind what Matt Rule said about Bly Hill, which he was the starter. Not blew out, but didn't blow it out. Hurt his knee in the spring game, but is ahead of schedule and will be practicing by the end of the month.
Yeah, I think he said he's first couple weeks of camp, he'll probably be out.
So practicing by the end of the month.
He'll be back on the field before the opener,
which suggests to me September. Which by the way, I have thought all along. I thought that when Rule first portrayed it and the way he talked about it, I thought by end of September, Bly Hill will be out there. Mm-hmm. The question is it the former Bly Hill?
Right.
That's what we don't know.
All right. Well, if you're not a member, again, try us out at HuskerOnline.com. 2 months of access for $1 with the promo code NU1. Great time to check out the site. We'll have full coverage of Nebraska's fall camp. For Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, I'm Sean Callahan, signing off here for another edition of the Husker Online Show.